Darius Hill kept his voice soft on purpose. Not because he felt soft, because he knew what the world did to black men whose voices carried in public. Even when they were right, even when they were tired, even when they were only asking for what had already been promised. He stood outside Harbor Haven Family Shelter with a duffel bag in one hand and a paper folder in the other. The morning air was sharp enough to sting. The building was plain, gray brick, a steel door, a small sign by the entrance, and a security camera that watched without blinking. Beside Darius stood Tasha, her shoulders tucked inward against the cold, a backpack clutched tight to her chest. Her hair was pulled back in a quick bun that didn't hide the exhaustion in her eyes. She looked like someone who had slept sitting up, or not slept much at all. Between them, holding Darius's fingers with both hands, was their son, Micah, 5 years old, wearing a puffy jacket that was a little too thin for the weather. His shoes were clean, but the laces were tied wrong, like somebody had rushed. Micah swung Darius's hand gently, trying to make a game out of standing still. "Are we gonna have a room?" Micah asked, voice small but bright. Darius bent slightly, forcing warmth into his expression. "We're gonna talk to them," he said. "We got the appointment, remember?" Micah nodded and leaned closer. Tasha didn't speak. She stared at the door like it might decide whether they deserved to be inside. Darius checked his phone again. Screen cracked at the corner, battery low. A text from the day before sat there like a lifeline. Harbor Haven intake. Appointment confirmed date. Tuesday time, 9:30 a.m. Bring IDs, paperwork. Any case manager notes Darius had read the message so many times he could recite it. He'd taken a screenshot. He'd forwarded it to Tasha. He'd even written the time on the back of an envelope when his phone had dipped under 10% the night before. Because the risk wasn't just missing a meeting. The risk was being told it never existed. They had arrived early, 9:12 a.m. They stood at the door until 9:25. Then Darius pressed the buzzer. A tinny speaker crackled. "Yeah," a woman's voice said. "Good morning," Darius answered politely. "We have an intake appointment for 9:30. Hill family. Darius Hill." Silence for half a beat. Then the speaker said, "Hold." A buzzing sound. The door clicked open. They stepped inside the lobby. It was warm, but it didn't feel welcoming. Fluorescent lights, beige walls, a plastic chair bolted to the floor, a bulletin board with flyers, food pantry hours, job training, know your rights. A security window with thick glass separated them from the front desk, where a shelter worker sat behind a computer. White woman, late 30s, hair in a tight ponytail, a cardigan that looked like it belonged in an office building, not a shelter. Her name badge read, Kim, Intake Desk. Kim looked up once. Her eyes moved over them, duffel bag, backpack, Micah's jacket, then landed on Darius's face. Her expression didn't soften. "You said you have an appointment?" Kim asked. "Yes," Darius replied. 9:30, intake. Kim's fingers began tapping at her keyboard. "Last name?" "Hill." Kim typed, frowned slightly, and typed again. Then she leaned back in her chair like the answer was settled. "We don't have you," she said. Darius went still. "Sorry." Kim's voice stayed flat. "You're not scheduled." Tasha's hand tightened around her backpack strap. Micah shifted closer to Darius, sensing the change without understanding it. Darius kept his voice calm. "We received a confirmation text yesterday. It says 9:30 this morning." Kim's eyebrows lifted a little, like she'd heard this before and already didn't believe it. People get confused about dates. Darius didn't raise his voice. "I'm not confused. I have the message." Kim shrugged, small and dismissive. "Well, I'm telling you what the system shows." Darius felt heat rise in his chest, fast and sharp, but he kept his tone even. Can you check under my phone number? It's tied to the intake. Kim sighed like Darius had asked her to carry something heavy. What number? Darius gave it. Kim typed again. Her eyes narrowed at the screen. Then she shook her head. Nothing. Tasha finally spoke, voice quiet but tight. We slept at the bus station. We got here early because you said we had a time. Kim looked at Tasha briefly, then looked away. Ma'am, I can only go by what's in the system. Darius opened his folder with careful hands. Inside were copies of IDs, Micah's birth certificate, a note from a community outreach worker, and a printed screenshot of the confirmation text because Darius didn't trust a phone screen alone. He slid the paper under the small slot at the bottom of the glass. This is the confirmation, Darius said calmly. It has the shelter name and the time. Kim glanced at it but didn't pick it up. We don't accept screenshots as proof. Darius's jaw tightened. It's not a screenshot. It's a printed confirmation from your number. Kim's lips pressed together. Anyone can print anything. Darius stared at her. There it was, the assumption that their proof was fake, that their word was unreliable. Tasha's shoulders rose like she was bracing for impact. Micah looked up at Kim and then back at Darius, eyes wide, the beginning of fear showing through his brave face. Darius kept his voice low. We're not asking for special treatment. We're asking for the appointment we were given. Kim's tone turned sharper, as if Darius's calm persistence was disrespect. Sir, we are full. We can't just take walk-ins because you show up. Darius's stomach dropped. Full. That word meant more than inconvenience. It meant danger. Kim, Darius said, still controlled. We are not walk-ins. If there's an error, we need you to correct it. Kim's eyes narrowed. Don't call me by my first name. Darius blinked once. It's on your badge. Kim's cheeks flushed, and her voice tightened. Sir, you need to lower your tone. Darius didn't change his tone at all. My tone is low. Kim leaned forward slightly, looking past Darius for the security guard sitting near the entrance. The guard was white, older, heavy-set, watching them with a bored expression like he was waiting for a reason. Kim spoke loud enough for the guard to hear. We can't help you if you're going to be aggressive. Aggressive. The word landed like a trap. Tasha's eyes flashed, hurt, anger, fear. He's not being aggressive, she said, voice trembling. Kim cut her off. Ma'am, please, this is a professional environment. A shelter lobby. Professional environment. Darius swallowed hard. He forced his hands to relax at his sides. He could feel his heart pounding in his throat now, not because he was guilty, but because he knew how quickly the label aggressive could turn into remove them. He looked at the security guard. The guard shifted in his chair, eyes on Darius now, hand resting on his belt like a reminder. Darius took a slow breath and returned his attention to Kim. Can you check the intake calendar by time? Darius asked calmly. 9:30 today. Maybe it was entered under my partner's name, Tasha Lane. Kim's mouth tightened. She typed, slower this time, like she didn't want to. She tapped the screen, scrolled, frowned. Then she said, no. Darius didn't flinch. He pulled his phone from his pocket and held it up, not close to the glass, respectful distance. The text was there, clear. Harbor Haven intake, appointment confirmed. Tuesday 9:30 a.m. Kim barely glanced. Phones can be altered. Darius felt something in him harden, calm turning into steel. He lowered his phone and spoke carefully, each word measured. Then tell me what you will accept, Darius said. Because we were told to come. We came. If you turn us away and something happens to my son tonight, that's on the decision you're making right now. Kim's eyes widened slightly, more annoyed than concerned. Sir, don't threaten me. Darius shook his head once, slow. That's not a threat. That's reality. Kim's jaw tightened. I'm going to ask you to leave. Tasha's breath caught. Micah's fingers gripped Darius's hand tighter. Darius stood very still, then said calmly, I want a supervisor. Kim's lips curled slightly, like the request was ridiculous. They'll tell you the same thing. Darius didn't blink. Get them. Kim stared at him for a long beat, then picked up a phone and pressed a button with a sharp motion. She spoke into it quietly, eyes fixed on Darius like he was the problem to be handled. A minute passed. Then a door behind the desk opened. A woman stepped out, black, mid-40s, wearing an ID lanyard and a tired expression that still held authority. Her badge read, Miss Robinson, Program Supervisor. She looked at Kim first. What's going on? Kim spoke quickly, shaping the story. They're here claiming an intake appointment, but they're not on the schedule. He's getting loud. Darius stayed calm, but his eyes sharpened. Ma'am, he said to Ms. Robinson, we have a confirmed intake appointment for 9:30. Kim says we're not in the system and is turning us away. I have the confirmation text and a printed copy. Ms. Robinson looked at Darius, then at Tasha, then at Micah. Her eyes softened for a moment when they landed on the child, then tightened again with focus. Let me see, Ms. Robinson said. Darius slid the printed confirmation toward her. Ms. Robinson picked it up immediately, no hesitation, no suspicion, and read it carefully. Her face changed, not dramatically, but enough. Then she turned to Kim. Kim, Ms. Robinson said, voice low and firm. This is a real confirmation. Kim's cheeks flushed. It's not in our system. Ms. Robinson didn't look impressed. Then our system is wrong. Pull up the intake appointment list by confirmation code. Kim blinked. Confirmation code? Ms. Robinson tapped the paper. Right there. Kim looked like she didn't want to, but she turned back to her keyboard and typed. Darius watched her face as she entered the code. Watched the moment her eyes narrowed. Watched the moment they widened. Kim stopped typing. Miss Robinson leaned in. What do you see? Kim's voice came out smaller. It shows as scheduled. Darius felt his chest loosen just a fraction, relief fighting anger. Miss Robinson's eyes narrowed. So why did you tell them they weren't scheduled? Kim swallowed. It didn't come up under the name. Miss Robinson's voice stayed steady, but it sharpened. Because you searched wrong. Kim's mouth tightened. It's a glitch. Ms. Robinson looked at Darius. Mr. Hill, I'm sorry. You are scheduled. We're going to do your intake. Tasha's shoulders sagged. She blinked hard, holding tears back. Micah looked up, hope returning like a light turning on. We're gonna have a room? Micah asked softly. Miss Robinson crouched slightly so she was level with him. We're going to take care of you, she said gently. Okay? Micah nodded quickly. Darius didn't move yet, because he wasn't letting the moment pass as if it was just an oops. He looked at Ms. Robinson, voice calm but firm. I want it noted that we were almost turned away, Darius said. Because if we hadn't asked for you, we would have been out that door right now. Ms. Robinson's expression tightened with understanding. She nodded once. It will be noted. Kim stared at her screen, face stiff, not looking at Darius anymore. But Darius wasn't looking at Kim either. He was holding his family steady. Because today proved what he already knew. Sometimes the appointment exists. Sometimes the help exists. The only question is whether someone decides you deserve it, until proof forces them to. Ms. Robinson didn't send Darius and Tasha back out into the cold. She opened the side door behind the intake desk and waved them through with a quiet urgency that felt like an apology without words. Come with me, she said. We'll do intake in the conference room. Darius picked up the duffel bag. Tasha tightened her grip on Micah's hand. Micah walked faster now, like the building had transformed from a wall into a doorway. The hallway smelled like disinfectant and burnt coffee. They passed a bulletin board with schedules and laminated rules. A staff member in scrubs walked by without looking up. A door opened somewhere, and someone laughed, a brief sound that made Darius's chest ache, because his life didn't have room for laughing right now. Ms. Robinson led them into a small room with a round table and 2 plastic chairs. A third chair sat in the corner, slightly crooked, like it had been dragged there during an argument. "Have a seat," Ms. Robinson said. Tasha sat immediately, shoulders collapsing as soon as she was allowed to. Micah climbed into the chair beside her, swinging his legs. Darius stayed standing for a second, scanning the room out of habit. 1 exit, 1 window, a folder rack on the wall. Then he sat, placing the folder of documents on the table and keeping his hands visible. Ms. Robinson sat across from them and opened a thin binder. "I'm going to start intake," she said. "But first, I want to acknowledge something." Darius held her gaze. Ms. Robinson's voice stayed professional, but there was heat under it. "You should not have been told you weren't scheduled when you were. That should not happen." Tasha's eyes glistened. "It almost did," she whispered. Ms. Robinson nodded, jaw tight. "I know." Darius didn't soften his point just because someone finally showed up. He kept his voice calm, but firm enough to matter. "Ms. Robinson," he said, "if you hadn't come out, Kim was about to send us away. She called me aggressive. She looked at the security guard like she wanted him ready." Ms. Robinson's eyes narrowed. "She called you aggressive?" Darius nodded once. "For asking her to check the confirmation code." Tasha's voice trembled. He didn't raise his voice. Micah was right there. Micah looked up, confused by his name. "I was good," he said quickly, as if he needed to prove it. Darius touched Micah's shoulder. "You were perfect," he said quietly. Ms. Robinson exhaled through her nose, controlled anger flickering in her face. "Thank you for telling me." Darius didn't gloat. He just stated it plainly. "We can't afford to be labeled something because someone didn't want to look." Ms. Robinson's eyes held his. "Understood." She opened her binder and began asking the intake questions. Names, dates of birth, last safe address, current situation, medical needs, work status, benefits, emergency contacts. Darius answered carefully, with the same precision he used when he handled paperwork, because mistakes got punished. Tasha spoke when her voice didn't shake too much. When it did, she paused, swallowed, and tried again. Micah fidgeted and traced circles on the table with his finger. Halfway through, Ms. Robinson stopped and looked down at the folder. "I see you brought everything," she said. Darius nodded. "We were told to." Ms. Robinson flipped through their papers. IDs, Micah's birth certificate copy, a letter from an outreach worker, a list of shelters they'd been turned away from before Harbor Haven finally offered a slot. Ms. Robinson's eyes softened for a moment. "You've been trying." Tasha let out a small, broken laugh that wasn't funny. "Trying is all we do." Ms. Robinson nodded slowly. "Okay, here's what I can offer right now." Darius leaned in slightly. "We have a family room opening today," Ms. Robinson said. "Not permanent placement yet. Initial shelter. 3 nights guaranteed while we finalize your longer-term plan." Tasha's shoulders sagged so hard, she looked like she might melt into the chair. Tears slid down her face before she could stop them. Micah's eyes widened. "A room, like with a bed?" "Yes," Miss Robinson said gently. "A bed." Micah bounced once in his chair. "Can I have a pillow?" Miss Robinson smiled faintly. "Yes, you'll have a pillow." Darius felt relief hit his body like something heavy finally dropping off his shoulders. But relief didn't erase what had just happened at the front desk. He wouldn't let it. "Thank you," Darius said, and he meant it. Then, just as calmly, "But I need one more thing." Ms. Robinson looked at him. "What is it?" Darius kept his voice low, controlled. "I need a written confirmation of our intake appointment being valid and completed with today's time. And I need it to note that the original appointment was confirmed and that we arrived on time." Ms. Robinson didn't hesitate. "Yes, we can do that." Because she understood why he needed it. Not for pride, for protection. A knock sounded at the door. Ms. Robinson opened it slightly. Kim stood there, stiff posture, face tight. "Miss Robinson," Kim said, "I have the next—" Ms. Robinson cut her off, voice firm. "Not now." Kim's eyes flicked to Darius, Tasha, Micah, then away. Miss Robinson stepped into the doorway and lowered her voice, but it carried enough that Darius could hear fragments. "Confirmation code. You told them no. You escalated security. Not acceptable." Kim's voice came back sharp and defensive. "He was arguing." Miss Robinson's reply was clipped. "He was right." Silence. Kim muttered something Darius couldn't catch. "Miss," Robinson said, firmer, "you don't get to label someone aggressive because you don't want to verify a record." Kim's face flashed, embarrassment, anger, something ugly. Then she walked away. Miss Robinson closed the door and returned to the table. Tasha wiped her cheeks quickly, embarrassed to cry in front of anyone. Darius didn't rush her. He just kept his hand near hers on the table, present without making a show. Miss Robinson resumed, brisk. "All right, family room assignment." She filled out a form and slid it across the table. Darius read it like his life depended on it, because it did. Name, date, room number, rules, 3 nights. Case manager assigned A. Jenkins. Then Ms. Robinson printed another sheet and signed it. "This confirms your intake appointment was scheduled for 9:30 and completed today," she said, sliding it toward him. "It includes the confirmation code." Darius took it carefully. A paper that said, "You were supposed to be here. You belonged here." He put it into his folder behind the IDs and birth certificate. "The way you stack protection." Miss Robinson stood. "I'm going to have someone bring you linens and show you to the family wing." Micah slid off his chair and grabbed his backpack like it was full of treasure. "Do we get to eat?" "Yes," Ms. Robinson said, voice gentle again. "Lunch is at noon. We'll make sure you get something." Tasha stood too, still shaky but upright now. Darius lifted the duffel bag, then looked at Ms. Robinson. His voice stayed calm, but it carried the weight of everything that almost happened. "Thank you for doing your job," Darius said. "But please don't let the next family get turned away just because somebody doesn't want to look." Ms. Robinson held his gaze, serious. "I won't." Darius nodded once. They followed a staff member down the hallway toward the family wing. Micah walked ahead, bouncing, asking questions about beds and pillows and whether he could take his shoes off. Tasha leaned close to Darius and whispered, voice raw, "I thought we were done." Darius squeezed her hand gently. "We weren't done," he whispered back. "We were almost erased." As they reached the door to the family rooms, Darius looked at the confirmation paper in his folder one more time. Because he knew the truth wasn't just that they got in today. The truth was that they almost didn't, until the appointment was confirmed, until the system admitted what it already knew. And Darius promised himself something he'd promised before, but meant in a new way now. Next time someone tries to turn his family into a no, he would bring the proof that forces A yes